Welcome to the Israel Guys and the Land of Israel Network, where we believe that in a world of anti-Israel propaganda and Jew hatred, you should have a direct connection to the land and people of Israel. Happy to have everyone with us, all of you here, whether you're a new viewer, listener, subscriber, happy to have you with us, as well as Joshua Waller, Rabbi Ari Abramowitz, Jeremy Gimpel. And tonight is Purim, which we will definitely talk about, commemorating the ancient land of Persia, trying to take out the Jewish people, eliminate the Jewish people, which ironically seems like is a continual thing every Purim, but definitely happening again this year. And the idea of ancient Persia trying to eliminate the Jewish people. And obviously we know the end of the story, that will never happen. Before we get into today's stories, what's been happening this week, just the news out of Israel, you guys should know, if you have not signed up for the Israel Summit, the 25% off discount is ending this Sunday at midnight. That's March 16th. So you want to click the link in the description below and get your tickets right now. The four of us are going to be there: Ambassador David Friedman, Michelle Bachman, Naomi Khan from Regavim. We got Nati Ram. And so many others you guys don't want to miss out. Dallas, Texas, June 9th through 11th. Link in the description below. So I wanted to start out with this story because I feel like it's very symbolic of the conflict, right? That's been happening since October 7th. And that is it probably appeared, I didn't check the mainstream media because I never check the mainstream media headlines, hardly ever. I'm guessing it probably appeared something like Gaza child wanders into Israel. Right, a 4-year-old Gaza boy just wanders from Gaza into an IDF post. The real story is that Hamas sent a 4-year-old Gaza boy from Gaza towards an IDF post. Why? Obviously hoping that he would be shot, bombed, killed, and then they could blame Israel for more genocide and intentionally murdering
that's what's in their orders would be to do that, because nothing living is allowed cross. They have a strict border, right? You're not allowed to cross this point. So they're trying to test and push that they know what they're doing.
Well, I think something else happened there, meaning now they know that if a boy comes in, the soldiers are going to go right up to him. Right. And the next move is to strap that boy with bombs and then sacrifice him to their God. That's the evil that we're dealing with. And really the conclusion from that story is that they have to go. There is no room for such a society in Gaza, and it's putting Israel and the Israel Defense Forces in an impossible scenario that they can't exist, trying to be good, trying to be moral, trying to protect the people of Israel, trying to do what's right with an enemy that is so evil and so ruthless. There's just no coexisting. They can't live alongside us, and this is just another proof of it.
Right. I think it's also important for Westerners to look at that with really through a magnifying glass and understand, because so much is embedded in that story. Number one, they want to look at this and say, oh, this is a political conflict about occupation and whatever. When in reality, this is going all the way back to the ancient Philistines who worshipped Molech, right? Who child sacrifice was one of their highest forms of worship. And that would have been ideal for them to actually kill this kid. Whether they do it or whether Israel does it, it would be the highest form of worship for them.
Well, that's why it's not really a human shield. It's a human sacrifice.
Right.
And that's really important to realize, that the more death that they bring, the better.
Right. And also to understand that the West does suffer. You have to listen to the words of your enemies and realize that there's something to it. There is a Western arrogance. There is Western arrogance. And what is that arrogance? It's projecting your worldview on the entire world and saying, well, we're a relatively materialistic society, for the better or for worse, that wants economic prosperity for all. And that's all that they want. And then you look at them and you say, no, there's actually fundamental differences in the worldview. For example, they see Israel and we hide our children behind us and we're protecting them with our very lives. And we see them as they're hiding in kindergartens. So we say, what a bunch of cowards that are hiding behind babies, hiding in kindergartens. And they look at us and they say, what a bunch of cowards that aren't willing to sacrifice everything. Yeah. There's just such a fundamental difference, and we have to understand who we're dealing with.
It's taught in their culture from a young age. At 4 years old, these children are being taught that the ultimate goal is to become a martyr for Allah, to become jihad, and so it's taught by the mothers, by the fathers, by the school systems, by the media, the television, everything. Obviously, what's the end of this story? That you can see the photos. We'll put up screenshots on the screen. The IDF takes this boy in. They take care of him. They give him water. They probably check him out medically. And then they immediately work with all the authorities in the region and they return him back home. What would have been, probably would have been better for that boy if they had taken him in and he would have a better life if he was actually taken in by Israel. But like you're saying, Hamas and the Palestinian Arabs from Gaza and Judea and Samaria, their ultimate goal is for their children to go into danger and become a martyr by killing Jews. The IDF in response in Israel, their ultimate goal is to save their children and honestly to save the children of their enemies as well.
Also, you got to point out, because it's so crazy, this whole thing, because as the leftist media likes to point out, what's the first thing when you think of Gaza? What is the Candace Owens? What are and we'll talk about that more probably, but what is this whole anti-Israel hater group? What is their first thing to condemn? All the women, the children are dying. Who are they blaming for that? Well, they're not blaming Hamas, the perpetrators, and the ones that have actually caused that 4-year-old to go into harm's way.
Not only
they're not protecting,
but intentionally
get behind them or push them into danger. The haters are saying, "Oh, Israel's fault. Israel's the one who is responsible for all the deaths in Gaza and all these things that are happening." And so I think this is a moment that we should take here, since they're not hearing it anywhere else, and just recognize the truth of the matter.
Yeah.
Israel saves lives. Israel doesn't. They're not fighting. What's that quote? There was an amazing young man who was killed in battle. I don't have his name in front of me right now. We met his parents a few weeks ago out when we were volunteering here. But he says it's not. They're fighting. They don't hate what's in front of them. You remember this quote he gave? It's such a beautiful quote. They're not fighting for what they hate, what's in front of them. They're fighting because of what they love, what's behind them. This is the IDF. Mm-hmm. These are the soldiers. This is Israel. They're not fighting from hate. They're fighting from love. And I believe that's a beautiful thing that the world.
Yeah, I'm serving in Gush Etzion, and the patch that they give us for our region, for our unit, it says, "The winner is the fighter who fights for his home." Because we're all living in Gush Etzion. It's a group of guys from this area of Judea that are fighting to protect this area of Judea. So we're fighting for our homes. I'm not superbly inspired by that, but that is the sentiment.
We'll be right back with the rest of today's show, but first, watch this video.
All right, guys, this is the first annual Israel Summit hosted by the Israel guys. Who's glad to be here?
It's much easier to get the settlers out of the West Bank than get the Jews out of Judea.
He blesses through the Jewish people in the land, being the blessing to all families on earth.
Jerusalem is the center. Jerusalem is the heart. Never again is now. We need to act. Now it's never again.
What is the hope? What is my messianic vision?
Even if you're an atheist, you understand that there can't be a two-state solution, right? Even if you don't believe in anything, you understand that God is right.
We're not saying it's not enough to just have peace now. No, Israel can be the safest country in the world.
Right now, tickets at the Israel Summit are 25% off, but that discount is going to end at midnight on Sunday, March 16th. That's really soon. So guys, don't wait. Click the link in the description below. Get your tickets for the Israel Summit today. Yeah, you're fighting for your home, for your wife, for your children, your neighbors, your country. The enemy, they're fighting against Israel, and they're also honestly fighting against their own families, their wives and their children and their neighbors, because what do they do? They don't care if their neighbors are slaughtered.
They're willing to sacrifice all of that. They
want their children to be sacrificed so that they can then blame it on Israel.
I try not to be fighting for my home. I feel like that's too myopic and too self-serving, and that's not what the Jewish people are about. I try to be fighting for all of humanity, not only for the free world that they are very clearly expressing. We just right now saw a woman in France just get pushed down the entire stairwell. It's happening throughout all of Europe. There's this jihad against all infidel, but also for them. Right? They are living a horrible life that is bringing out the worst and the darkest and the most vicious impulses in all of humanity. We are supposed to be fighting for all of humanity and also for God, for bringing God's light and truth and goodness into the world. Well, and yeah, go ahead.
Well, I think that's exactly the truth. Meaning the truth is that we're going back to basics to be able to recognize good and recognize evil. I know that Trump just now put in an order to start arresting the pro-Hamas supporters on college campuses. And there's one of them named Khalil from Columbia University that he was arrested and now he's set to be deported. And at the same time, the left are screaming, yelling, protesting, release that terrorist supporter, where they're really quiet about the Americans that are being held hostage still by Hamas.
Right.
Meaning the truth is being revealed for everyone to see and hypocrisy is being shown. And that's really what this war is about.
What is it going to take, though, to wake up these Jew-hating, those voices are so loud in the world. What does it take? The IDF rescues the 4-year-old.
So you're talking about the ones that are supposedly on the right?
Yeah,
the ones on the left.
It's very concerning to see this rise of Jew hatred from the right. Most people think, the right wing is a awesome team,
I thought this whole story of the child that was pushed into the IDF post by Hamas was really symbolic of the conflict, right? By the way, the IDF Arabic language spokesperson said, in regards to this story, quote, "It's clear to everyone that Hamas does not hesitate to use children as part of its cynical fight while turning them into tools in the game of war. This is a serious violation of every international and ethical norm, and the international community must awaken and act determinedly against the use of children as weapons."
So who's saying that, though? The IDF will post that, but who's talking about that? That's my point.
If we want to talk about actual violations of international law, right?
Sometimes I feel, though, the more whatever you resist persists. And Israel is always saying, we're doing the advocacy thing wrong. We have to do it this way. We have to do it that way. We have to do it this way. What about not doing it at all? What about instead of caring so much what the whole world thinks, caring what God thinks, caring what is true and what is right? And if we just act based on that truth, regardless of what the world thinks, I think the world would respect us more.
Well, we got proof
It's almost like there's some sort of subconscious resentment. It's very subconscious on behalf of humanity that's saying, Israel, you're supposed to be a light. You're supposed to be blessing us and teaching us. And instead, you're constantly making the argument to us about why we shouldn't hate you and why we should hate them. And what about actually being the Jews we're supposed to be and acting with character and with determination and with resolute knowledge that we're living the words of God? When he says, when I bring you to the land, Joshua chapter 1, right when you come into the land, follow my directives, listen to, keep my Torah, and you will be blessed. That's it. That's it. We have to stop caring so much.
Yeah, no, I think that's good. By the way, the patch you're wearing was also seen on the helmet of the soldier that was caring for this 4-year-old
made the rescue.
We do have to give credit for credit is due, because somebody commented and said that the Israel guys sell this patch. So, Christians selling this patch. So just to clear the air, it's a Jewish rabbi that started selling this patch. So if anybody here in Israel wants to buy the patches from the Israel guys, just know it came
from the Israel
guys. From Rabbi Ari Abramowitz. You can get them at theisraelguys.store, I think, or something like that. But
can I just say how awesome it is that the soldier that's on the front line that's rescuing a 4-year-old enemy is wearing a big temple patch, and he has Mashiach on his helmet. It's like the mainstream media obviously did not know that. They were just taking a picture of the guy, and then they posted the story. And it's kind of aside the fact that that's like every other soldier right now.
Yeah, no, it's like the world wants to. They want to see an image. Evil IDF soldier hates Arab child, but what do they see instead? They see like righteous, holy IDF soldier that's like tenderly caring for the child of his enemy.
But what's also so interesting is that what did Hamas, we've spoken about it before, what do they call this war? the Al-Aqsa flood. For them, it was about the Temple Mount. Yeah, right. It was about fear of the Jews building the temple and their hatred of the fact we're even allowed to go up there to pray. And for them, the whole idea of that Temple Mount elicits a murderous hatred and rage. And then we put the Temple Mount on our patches and that we're fighting for. But what are we fighting for? We're fighting for the lion lying down with the lamb, beating our swords into plowshares, loving all of humanity. It's totally antithetical opposites of what the temple actually is and what it brings about. And that's what the war is essentially about at the core.
Every soldier that I've met that's gone into Gaza and come back says that every single home has a picture of the Temple Mount in their home. So it's not that there's like this Hamas ideological movement. All of Gaza has been indoctrinated to want to destroy Israel and liberate the Temple Mount from the Jews who built the temple. They wanted to destroy Israel, all of the Gazans. Cool. And so I have a point that I want to make, and that is, how do I know that all of the Gazans are bad? How do I know that they really can't stay in the land? That seems like a radical claim, meaning in all of our biblical history, there's always been one or two, even among our enemies, that were good. There was Rachav in Jericho. There was Schindler that was with the Nazis. There have been people that fought against Hitler. Now, on one hand, we know that not even one Gazan has given any intel about any of the hostages. We know that. We've spoken about that.
Even if they wanted to do it for a bribe, you know, for a monetary reward.
No one gave any intel about the hostages. But here's another point. There's not even one Instagram account. There's not one Facebook account of anyone in Gaza saying, you know, the Bibas children that we kidnapped and murdered, that was wrong. There's not even one outspoken Gazan, even on a fake account. And then people say, well, they're scared that the Hamas might catch them. Well, there's so many Gazans that are pissed off at the Hamas, yelling at them for what they've done. They've run this war the wrong way. Now Gaza's in ruins. So they're clearly not that scared of Hamas. Right. But the point is, there's no moral backbone to even one Gazan.
That's right.
All of them are evil.
You're right. We have seen a lot of critiques from them about Hamas, but it's always been pragmatic. It's always been, you're not killing the Jews in the right way. And look what it's brought upon us. It's never like a foundational, you are doing evil. And who is it? Mossab Hassan Yosef? Yeah. He's already out. It's almost like whoever may be the one spark is already out. That's 100% true.
I want to make one more point, though, because I think, and Luke, you barely touched this, but I want to make it even more, emphasize it a little bit more, is you mentioned the Bibas children. This is what happens when Israeli children end up on the other side, is the Bibas children. The 4-year-old that was sent across to be killed was not met by Israel like the Bibas children were met, with the horrific end that they endured in Gaza. We're talking about Israel, a beacon of light and of hope and of love and of really a nation of godliness, even in the things that are hard to understand, and it's a path moving forward, and Israel's in a process of getting better every day. But I want everybody to just see this very clearly. We have a 4-year-old coming into Israel. We have a 4-year-old going into Gaza. Look at the drastic difference on how Israel...
Except one was kidnapped by Hamas and dragged into Gaza. The other was taken by Hamas, their own child, and sent into Israel.
You just can't... The comparisons show you, all of you haters, all of those people that are trying to demonize and delegitimize Israel.
I was going to say, there's not one of these people. Candace Owens, Hodge twins, Dan Bilzerian, anybody. Like, name any of these guys, not one single one of them could...
I feel bad about mentioning those names on the show to start with.
Could make a claim that an Israeli child would wander into Gaza and not be murdered, kidnapped, tortured, mutilated.
It wouldn't be
not a single one. And I dare anybody to try it. Like you can't even believe that in your heart. It's so awful and horrific.
What's ironic is if any of them were to wander into Gaza.
This is also true.
They're not.
They wouldn't receive a lot of love. Yeah, that's for sure.
When we think about the Bibas children, Purim is coming right around the corner, and there's a whole phenomenon around these like young children, 4 or 5 years old, that are dressing up as Batman. And that's because there's this famous picture of one of the Bibas children, his last Purim, that he was dressed up as Batman. And I've been thinking so much about the Bebas children. And now this young boy that's come here is just such a stark contrast. But the whole world, and the Batman symbol is orange. That was sort of the color of the funeral. That was color that was lit up around the world.
They set balloons up all orange.
Yeah, all over the world. People were setting up orange balloons in Switzerland. Monuments were lit up orange. And I remember when we were fighting for Gush Katif, fighting to never give away the land of Israel, orange was the color.
That's right.
And I can't feel, but that was some type of national prophecy. It was like the people of Israel came out waving orange, fighting for the land of Israel, fighting for Gush Katif. And then what came back to us was this orange that can't leave us now. And it's like, if you give up on the orange, you're going to get orange back. And it was as if the people of Israel unknowingly, mysteriously, were given over this message that only over this incredible period of time, 20 plus years, can we see what happens when the people of Israel give up on the God-given land of Israel.
We'll be right back with the rest of today's show. But guys, if you are enjoying the Bible teachings, getting into the Torah, getting into the spiritual insights of Israel and the Jewish people and the scriptures with Rabbis Jeremy Gimpel and Ari Abramowitz, I would encourage you to check out the Land of Israel Fellowship at thelandofisrael.com. Each week, Jeremy Gimpel, Ari Abramowitz, their wives, other special guests, they get on a virtual fellowship with hundreds of people from all over the world, just like yourself. And they study the Bible, they study current events, spiritual insights, the Torah, the biblical festivals. And you can join them right now. We'll put a link in the description below. The Land of Israel Fellowship, one of the best ways to take that next step to connect with the Jewish people and the land of Israel every single week. Just click the link in the description below or go to thelandofisrael.com to check out the Land of Israel Fellowship. And now let's get back to the show.
Yeah, God says it himself. When you go into the land, if you do not dispossess it of the inhabitants, then they will be thorns in your eyes, and I will do to you what I would do to them. And that's literally what we're facing right now. But it's like such a clear, direct message from God himself. And we're just getting lost in the political superfluouses.
Well, I just read that not only that, but in Judea and Samaria in 2024, there were over 6,000 terror attacks that were foiled or attempted terror attacks. Maybe some of them were successful, but if you do the math, do you have the exact numbers?
Yeah. So 6,343 terrorist attacks in 2024, only in Judea and Samaria, and only involving Palestinian terrorists who targeted Jews. Obviously, that included 179 incidents involving gunfire. 27 Israelis were murdered in Judea and Samaria in 2024, and more than 300 others wounded.
If we allow them to remain in the land, do you understand that's almost 20 terror attacks a day, 300 to 6,000. It's like unbelievable. 20 terror attacks a day from Judea and Samaria in 2024. That's in the middle of the war that we're fighting with Lebanon and Syria and Gaza at the same time without us even paying much attention because it doesn't make the headlines. 20 terror attacks a day in 2024.
Another one just last night on a farm that our volunteers have worked on many, many times. We've helped establish this farm and help provide security.
We've been a part of this farm since the very beginning.
Yeah, a drive-by shooting where they targeted the driver with a green laser, blinded him, and then shot him. And he was, I think, thank God he's going to be okay. He was shot in the hand.
Well, his car is like just loaded with bullets. You see the pictures. Yeah. And thank God. Absolute miracle. His car was loaded into.
Only 20 minutes from where we're sitting right here, by the way.
Yeah, thank God he stayed.
I mean, the holiday of Purim, we have like Jewish legalism, like we have our laws. And if you miss even one word of hearing the Megillah, you do not fulfill the commandment to listen to the Megillah. Because it says that every single word is a miracle. Every single word conveys another dimension, another facet of the miracle. And when you look at the times we're in right now, the miracles are all around us. Even when you look closely, sometimes the overwhelming trauma of October 7th just so transcends and eclipses the miracles all around it. That the entire country could have been October 7th if they just got their acts together and Hezbollah attacked at the same time as Hamas attacked and they all came in. The fact that that didn't happen is a miracle also.
That's right.
Well, just yesterday, the largest weapons cache was uncovered in years in Jerusalem. There's never been such a large weapons that was being held by the jihadists within the land. And so that is a miracle, meaning every 20 terror attacks a day in Judea and Samaria. The fact that we're still here in Har
Can I read some of the stuff they discovered? Because I want people to understand how much of how serious the threats are in Judea and Samaria, which is
Jerusalem.
Well, it's funny sometimes that we actually talk about stuff like this because we actually have. Well, number one, you guys live in Judea, we live in Samaria, but two, both of us bring hundreds and thousands of people to Judea and Samaria. So we're not scaring anybody off here, because the reality is it is very
we're just
safe,
putting an exclamation point on how big God is
decades.
And how incredible the military of Israel in partnership with that amazing God of Israel and the miracles that are taking place. When you read this list,
2 caches discovered, one close to Jerusalem and another one actually close to Jenin. And that was actually bomb making materials discovered near Jenin. Near Jerusalem, we're talking M16 rifles, pistols, sniper rifle, a piece of a kill-shown tank. A piece of a tank. I don't even know how that works. 7 IDF M6 detonators, a grenade launcher, remote control transmitter, other rifle magazine, thousands of rounds of ammunition, dozens of weapon cartridges, other weapons accessories. I just think, I think it highlights the miracle, and it also highlights how serious the threat is in Judea and Samaria. And thank God, actually, because of the other war fronts that are happening all around Israel. And the fact that Israel's recognizing these threats are actually taking active steps to deal with it. Number one, they've been dealing with Jenin for over a month now, seriously dealing with Jenin. There's videos now that Jenin's starting to look like Gaza because they're just bulldozing terrorist infrastructure there. And they're starting to move over here to Nablus, which is right over the hill from us. And we've been hearing.
What is? I'm just interested, Luke. What is Nablus?
Shem.
Sorry. Because it's interesting.
Where's that in your Bible?
Nablus? Why is it called Nablus? Jeremy, you know the answer to this.
Yeah.
Because Arabs can't say P, so they say B, right?
Right. It was Naples. It was named Naples because it looked like Naples.
Little Italy. Right.
But they can't pronounce P. They can't pronounce a P, and they're Palestinians. They can't even pronounce their own fake nation. What the whole fake identity is all about.
That's not a politically correct thing to say. You're going to bother Candace Owens by calling out
but I
that
think
fact.
it's important to understand where are these weapons coming from? They're coming from Iran.
Yeah.
They're coming from Iran.
That's right.
Through Jordan.
Is Persia, by the way.
Which is Persia, which is important to understand.
Hold on. Ari, can you make this a little bit more dramatic? You're saying we're in Passover. I mean, we're in Purim. We're in Purim.
Get your holidays straight, Waller.
Shoot. It started with a P. Come on. I don't know. We were just talking about that.
Passover is next.
So it is next. Okay. Yeah, okay. But Purim, are we literally living in we're making a lot of connections between then and now.
Well, so first,
literally boil it down a little more, because I think that's really fascinating that it's happening again.
Right. So I want to just first zoom back and start where you clearly intentionally took it, was his Passover. What was the message for Passover? Pharaoh and the Egyptians and the world were disabused of their illusions, that they're gods and that they control everything. And what happened is the God of Israel came in and flipped over the laws of nature in just this overwhelming, revealed way. But Purim brings something even deeper, that God's name is not mentioned even once in the entire book. It's the only book of the whole Bible his name isn't mentioned. Why? Because God works from within the laws. Every single detail is being orchestrated intentionally to bring about what we will see in the end, why all of this needed to happen. But that's the story of Purim, that you don't see God's name because everything is from God. Everything is orchestrated and clearly, perfectly designed for every individual in the world on their own personal life mission, and then for all of humanity altogether. Jeremy, there's something you wanted to say?
No, okay. I think that it is more than remarkable that the last book of the Bible, our enemy, is in Persia. And today, the head of the snake is Persia. They're funding the Hezbollah. They're funding the new Islamists in Syria. They're funding the Houthis. They're backing the Hamas. And the head is Iran. And what do they want to do now? They're building nuclear weapons to wipe out every Jew in one single day, just like what Haman wanted to do. Right. And to not recognize that we are reliving that scenario right now. is really unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, the word Iran, if you go to Wikipedia, you type in Iran, the first thing we'll say is where the word Iran comes from. Aryan.
Right.
Aryan.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, what does that mean? Hitler was Aryan. What was this? Right. It's this concept, this idea of this pure Aryan race that goes all the way back from Hitler to Haman, to Agag, to the biblical Amalek. And you could always tell who this nation of Amalek is that their hatred for Israel and the Jewish people is unadulterated and without any ulterior motives. You can't attribute anything to it.
It's not like we have a border with Iran.
Yeah, meaning Amalek was the first, the whole world was in shock and awe and terrified of the Jewish people, terrified of this slave people that just got out of Egypt without a weapon too. Why are they terrified? Because the God of Israel, the God of all of mankind, is clearly with them until Amalek attacked. Right. And threw a cold vessel and a boiling hot water, cooling the whole thing off. They attacked. And why? Israel wasn't even going near their borders, not attacking them. They had nothing to do with it because their hatred for Israel is Israel is the vessel, the vehicle. Their hatred is for the God of Israel. Their hatred is for God. And that's what this is all about. This whole war is about. The war from the Ayatollah is just taking the torch from this multi-generational, and you have to really respect them for it. You have to give it to them. They've been trying to destroy us for thousands of years and failing miserably, and they're still at it. They're still doing it. It's almost like they were created just for such a purpose. And maybe it's to elicit and bring out something from within us.
Well, and I want to recognize something really highly important today. Today is the Fast of Esther. As two rabbis, you're fasting right now, along with millions of other Jewish people in Israel and outside of Israel. Jewish people
and non-Jewish people. I know a lot of non-Jewish people that are fasting also for Israel.
That's right. It's a moment right now of Esther fast. I know a lot of people right now are fasting. You're exactly right. I know I have a lot of friends that are fasting today as well. Jeremy, is this? I know fasting moves things. Obviously, Esther fasted and prayed, and God flipped this entire thing over. Are you feeling that right now as you're fasting, as you're praying, as you're joining your nation, you're joining your people in fasting? Is there an expectation like Esther? It's a little bit kind of a traumatic scene with Esther because it's like, she doesn't know, am I going to die? Right. Or will God hear my prayer and my fasting and flip this for good?
Well, it's really interesting. The fact that we're fasting today is really significant because we're not fasting the time when Esther told us to fast. That was around Passover time. That was a different date. The fact that we're fasting now is this fast was really right before the people of Israel got up and fought. This is a fast of war against evil. And we're now encountering evil in the most glaring way. The fact that we're fasting now is really significant. Yeah. I mean, as people are blaming Israel for crimes against Gaza, the new Islamists in Syria are broadcasting the most horrific videos, proud of slaughtering the Christians, the Alawites, the Druze, the minorities that are there, and no one is saying a thing. And so what does that mean? That means that Israel has been given a task. Yep. And that is to remove evil from the world because the world won't do it. Only Israel has the power to finally remove the evil. And that's really what we're celebrating in Purim, meaning King Saul was the great-great-grandfather of Mordechai and Esther from the tribe of Benjamin. And he wasn't able to finish the job. And the reason why we celebrate a second day in Purim is because the second day Esther comes up to the king and says, can I just have one more day? I mean, we've done what we needed to do. We gave Amalek a huge blow. We really knocked him down. But then Esther's like, I really want to finish the job. Can I just have one more day? And until today, we celebrate that second day because that is the task of this generation before Mashiach. That we have to finish the job and wipe out evil from the land.
And not only finish the job, I'm sorry, but also to take responsibility, right? Like essentially for the theologians out there, this is a continuation since, where did the first name of Haman, was it mentioned? Hamin Haaretz, from the tree in the Garden of Eden. This is about the initial expulsion from the garden. And what are we praying for? Redemption? Back into the garden. And so let's take the abstraction and theology out of that. What are we looking at here? It's about taking when were Adam and Eve thrown out of the garden? When they ate from the tree? Not really. They weren't thrown out then. Right. They were only thrown out when God said, "What have you done?" And Adam said, "She did it. She did it," right? And then King Saul, he didn't kill Agag. Was that when the kingship was ripped away from him? No, it was when he said, "They did it. It was them, the commanders, the officers." This morning, King David, he sinned, but why was the kingship forever and eternally in the Davidic dynasty? Because he said, "Hatati, I sinned." The nation of Israel needs to take responsibility. We need to take responsibility for ourselves and for all of humanity. And that's why I was thinking about that conversation last week with Chuck. He was so excited when he heard Jews actually saying, "You're right. We need to do what is right and moral for all of humanity in the world and not just be another nation that's like, well, we have our own realpolitik and our own pragmatism and we just need to do what's right for us." No, we need to do what's right for all of humanity and for the world. And that's what this is all about. That's why in the holiday of Purim, there's another law. You can't read the Megillah Lamafreya. You can't read the end and then go back to the beginning and say, "I heard the whole thing." Why? Because if you read it like it happened in the past, you're missing the whole picture. You have to understand that it's happening right now.
Right. It's a good point to start is that by fasting and praying, as we're mentioning, I think that's a beginning of taking a lot of responsibility. And that's personally, you're doing something right now to align with God and his plans. And Lord willing, we'll see the same story.
Well, I want to ask you guys a question. Is that all right if we flip the tables on you a little bit?
Well, that's what Purim's all about.
No guarantees that we'll have an answer.
Yeah, right. Because I think about what Mordecai said to Esther. And she said, if I go before the king and he does not put down his scepter, I'll be killed. And he said, redemption will come to the Jewish people.
Yeah.
But will it be through you?
Yeah.
Right? And I look at you guys, and I can't think of anyone in the land of Israel from the nations of the world who is a better example of saying, we want to be that vehicle. We want to be that vessel that blesses the Jewish people. Why? Because you're not like a nonprofit that cuts vines, right? You're always constantly, I would give examples, but it would probably get us banned from YouTube. But you're always looking to say, what could we do for the nation of Israel? And it doesn't matter if we are on the tip of the spear as far as danger to ourselves personally, we're going to do it. Do you guys identify with that?
Well, I think what Jeremy said earlier would be what really resonated with me is that, yes, there's people from historically, there's always been a remnant of people that joined and helped Israel. That's the way we see ourselves. We're just a piece of we're aligning ourselves with Israel, the God of Israel. We want to be a part of this thing in a healthy way, just like people in the past through Jeremy mentioned a bunch of names earlier. These people, we see ourselves continue, and we want. I think that in the end of days, as the prophets would agree, is that number needs to be a little bit more. It doesn't need to just be one from there.
That's what I would say.
Yes, it's got to be bigger.
I mean, and just to give some examples, like last week, building a fence in Judea.
That's right.
The farm where the terrorist attack happened last night. I know the guys take our skid steer over there and they clean out the barn. Like they actually clean out the animal stalls.
We built security roads there on that specific farm where the attack happened.
To your point,
we built security roads on that exact farm.
But could you discuss that also?
Well, no, I'm just saying that it's specifically well, because they've also, that farm has had jihadis came and stole sheep from that farm as well. So in response to that, we built a security
pretty much anything that establishes or protects or defends or grows or developes the Jewish communities and the Jewish farms in Judea and Samaria. Like that's our goal. But I would say, to Josh's point, because I've been doing this 17 years now. You've been here 20 years. I think our goal is to be a conduit for the nations to come and be a part of this work. And last year we had like 250 or 300 volunteers, right? Volunteers come through our programs. Another however many come that just visit. And when there's not a war going on, we have thousands every year that come and visit. And then we have things like the Israel Summit, where we'll have a couple thousand people there in person and watching online that get to connect and get to come and stand with Israel, even if they can't physically come. And then we have like these shows, 150,000, 200,000 people watching this show every week. And to me, every single one of those things is simply a way for people to be a part of the story. And right now, we're seeing the line. People are making the choice.
How do you see yourself as a part of the story?
Myself?
Yeah. What role are you playing?
I think it's that conduit. It's the invitation for thousands and millions of people to come and be a part. But I think at the same time, it's the fact that we're here. that we don't want to leave, and we don't want to be excluded from this story. We're living on a hilltop, in Samaria.
Well, I think it's
surrounded by 3 Arab villages right here in this vicinity. And when Iran attacks, this is where we want to be. When the bombs are falling, we don't want to be anywhere else. We don't want to be back in America. We don't want to be other places of the world. And if we are in those places, it's simply to bring more people to come and be here.
The biggest thing that I'd want everybody else, and Ari, the reason why you're digging into this is because Israel needs support right now. The people of Israel need to feel like you're not alone. There's people out there that are joining with you. And I think there's thousands of people that are watching this show that align with this vision. They're trying to figure out, how can I be more a part of it, right? And that's our whole idea here is to help gather people to be more a part of this redemptive thing that's happening in Israel. No, it's not a terrible thing. It's not what the mainstream media is trying to say. No, it's a redemptive thing. It's a miraculous thing, and God's moving here like you wouldn't believe. And I think what sums that up, we had this massive operation before called Operation Itai. Well, who was Itai? He really represents this nation's coming to serve. Itai was actually a relative of Goliath, but he made some different personal choices. He decided that he was going to go to David and say, David, I'm with you. And that's what I believe so many thousands around the world are making that decision right now. They're seeing the line being drawn, and they're seeing Goliath. And yeah, it makes a lot of sense to join Goliath because it looks like he's going to win. Because if you look at the 400 million Arabs surrounding the 6 million, 7 million Jews here, you would just decide, let's go with the majority.
Survival of the fittest would lead you right there.
It would lead you there, but there's a
let's be honest though. Like if you really look at history and understand history, like I'm on the side of the Jewish people.
No, but that's not going to be a radical. It's not going to be a rational thought. You're going to join the numbers, and that's what most people are doing.
It doesn't ever make sense.
If you don't believe in God, you're automatically on the other side.
But I just have to say, as long as you're talking David and Goliath, it's important to understand that the difference between David and Goliath is really a moment. It's a moment. Yeah. There was Ruth and there was Orpah.
Yeah.
Right? In the story of
one decision.
Right. One decision. And so what happened was that Naomi said, there's no future for you. I'm going to go back with my head down, broken, destitute to my nation. There's going to be no future for you there. And they both wanted to join. And she said no. And Orpah went back to her nation. And Ruth said, your God is my God, your people is your people. Where you live, I will live, and where you die, I will die. And she joined the nation of Israel as an outsider, as a Moabite woman, right. And she was the great-great-grandmother of King David. That's right. And what happened to Orpah? She was the great-great-grandmother of Goliath.
Is that right?
Yes.
Are you serious?
That is true.
One decision.
And so that one decision.
Where do I live?
That one moment. Who am I attaching myself to? Am I attaching myself to the nation of Israel? I'm Candace Owens. I have a choice here.
Yeah.
There's the nation of Israel, and there's the entire Muslim, Arab world, and Christian world, that a Catholic world. And what am I going to do? Side with who am I going to side with? And it's important to maybe transition right now to talk about that, because there's another front opening up that a lot of people, a lot of Jews, particularly in America, are getting increasingly nervous, increasingly uneasy, deeply uneasy when they see, wait a second, we're used to the left being the international left funded by Qatar and all of these Muslim countries and China turning against Israel. But we always felt like we have the right in America that sees things clearly with a certain moral clarity, but that's falling away now.
That's right.
And rapidly. This is happening with such momentum that so many of these right-wing leaders, is it okay that I just...
No, that's right where it is. Yeah. No, it's right. It's exactly where those decisions lead. And I think that it's a powerful moment that people need to know that those little decisions that we just talked about can lead to a Goliath or a David end.
Well, how do you guys understand that? What's happening from Tucker Carlson? Because at the beginning, I spent so long looking at Candace Owens, and I was like, she's incredible. What a powerful, articulate, brilliant woman. And Tucker Carlson I liked, and then all of a sudden they're platforming these horribly Jew-hating.
I can remember the moment.
So I pulled up a video a couple of months ago of Candace Owens like a year and a half ago or something on the Daily Wire, and then I saw a video for recently, and it was like 2 different people. I'm always looking at it like, is this the same person?
She made
what happened here?
Decisions between them.
Kind of the same thing with Tucker Carlson, and he still rides the line.
Well, no, Tucker Carlson never really talked about Israel. He always dodged it.
But he still today tries to ride the line of trying to stay innocent. But at the same time, it's like you're saying, always bringing on these Jew haters, always bringing up these topics that are just ridiculous. And to me, I'm always looking at Candace Owens going like, how is someone so incredibly ignorant about these topics? How can somebody make such an ignorant statement about, Israel bombing tens of thousands of children, committing genocide? Like how, but at the same time, she talks about it walking through the old city and being so surprised that, the old city of Jerusalem's divided into quarters, and it reminds her of the segregated South growing up, that her grandfather grew up. And I'm just like, how is someone that can appear so incredibly intelligent and smart in some areas become so unintelligent? And the question is, do they really do these people really believe these things? Are they?
So my question is,
is this a they're actually Jew haters, anti-Israel, and they have a nefarious agenda?
The question, I keep vacillating. Even now at this moment, I'm vacillating because on the one hand, I really want to like her. I really look at Tucker Carlson, and I've always considered him a person of truth. He's trying to follow. I'm not saying he knows the absolute truth. None of us do. But I always consider him someone that wants to speak the truth as he sees it.
Yeah.
I consider the same thing for Candace Owens. So the question is, are they taking deep dives into the wrong websites and they're just swimming through these conspiratorial websites and running with it? Or do they have a predisposition in their fundamental foundational theology that would lead them to want to accept and to embrace these anti-Israel things? And I tend to think it's the latter, that there's a predisposition there. Yeah. But this is also, I believe, this is meant to be happening right now. This is part of the way things are supposed to be playing out, because whenever Jews hold on to these illusions of any sort of stability and steadiness that we could put our faith in, at least the American right is with us. Whenever Jews start to overly conflate their identity. I remember growing up, all of these right-wing religious Jews in my synagogue looked at Hannity, and the only difference was he's a Christian and they're a Jew, but they're both right-wing conservatives. And now that illusion is being shattered before their eyes. So why is this happening? Any of you have thoughts? I mean, I'll share my feeling about the deeper movement of why it's happening. But first...
No, I mean, the only thing I would say is I feel like it's probably more dangerous than the left that is anti-Israel and Jew hating. They conserve the so-called conservative right that is all of a sudden just turning every day. It feels like somebody new turning on Israel. We got to be careful.
This isn't the first time this is happening. And I think we should go back to Purim. We first see this happen in the story of Purim, right? When it says that Haman and Ahasuerus put out this decree that all the Jews will be genocided. And what was the reaction of the Jews of Persia? Were they terrified? No, it says Nevochah. They were consternated. They were confused. Like, what? We are the most loyal, patriotic Persians that there are. We were just celebrating at your palace, Ahasuerus, eating from the vessels of the temple in this godless party, showing how loyal we are to you. How could you turn against us like this? It happens again and again and again. The Jews become the most loyal, patriotic citizens of wherever they are, really believing in their own myopic way that it's different this time, that they're Americans this time, and they are the most paid. Nobody will ever turn against them. And it's happening, because just as all of the prophecies are happening, there is going to be an ingathering of the exiles. And the prophet Jeremiah, right, he says, therefore, behold, days are coming. This is chapter 16. Days are coming when it will no longer be said, as God lives, who brought the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt, but rather, as God lives, who brought the children of Israel up from the land of the north and from the lands to which he had scattered them. For I shall bring them back to their land, which I give to their forefathers. Behold, I will send many fishermen, says God, and they will fish them. And afterwards I will send many hunters, and they will hunt them from every mountain and from every hill and from every crevice, from the crevices of the rocks.
You're saying that relates specifically to Aliyah? Like
that relates to Aliyah, that we and many, many, many others, yourself included, have been shouting from the rooftops, come back to the land of Israel. We've been praying for thousands of years, 3 times a day. Right. Please, God, return us. And now all we have to do is jump on the wings of the eagles. Right? He says, I'll send you back on wings of eagles. These El Al planes jump on the plane. We don't have to dive malaria draining the swamps anymore. We have 2-ply toilet paper and air conditioners. Come back home. Come back home. It's delicious. It's beautiful. It's exciting. It's filled with mission and purpose and happiness. Come back home. They're like, yeah, but you know, I have a mansion here, and I like it here, and I like it here. And it's like, okay, the fishers had their go, And now the hunters are going to come.
My personal story is with this is I grew up born in Nashville, raised outside Nashville, just outside of Nashville. There's a Jewish community, small Jewish community of Nashville. I went and spoke at the synagogue last time I was there. When I went, I ran into a Jewish guy who was raised here in Samaria. He had married and moved to Nashville, and he was living there. And I had a very poignant conversation with him. I said, as I walked out of the synagogue, what do I see? They have to have armed to the hilt. That the Jewish community there is unaware of the bubble they're living in. It was armed to create 2 guards with M16s.
This is
outside of Nashville synagogue.
That's not even talking about New York or California.
The threat of Nashville is not a bunch of leftist whacks. The threat of Nashville is a bunch of conservative right whacks. And it's an undercurrent. And I told him, I know you don't know this, but I want you to be aware. If you're moving your young family here from Samaria, you're moving here to Nashville, I want you to be aware that there is a conservative right and it is strong. And I want you to tell me, look at me in the eye and tell me you understand that you're watching it. Because I don't think you're understanding where you're living. And I told him that straight. As a native of Nashville, that hurts me to say that, but Jewish people of Nashville need to understand. Jewish people of America need to understand. That movement could awaken like that. It's very powerful. It's somewhat low lying right now. It's not like a crazy thing, but all it takes is one crazy thing to happen, and they will flip like that.
Yeah, I remember. I'm born in Houston, Texas. I was raised in Houston. I love Texas, and I love America. I really do. And I remember there was this horrible flood for the 90,000th time in Houston, destroying the whole city. And there's a picture of one of the Jews or in the congregation, or maybe a policeman, I forget, holding the Bible, the Torah, above his head, walking it out from the synagogue so the Torah wouldn't be drenched in the water. And there's a picture of that. And then someone put another picture, and it said, and at Jerusalem, and it said, underwater, consider coming home. And I just reposted that. The amount of Jews that were furious, angry, how could you? They were so angry at me that I would post that. Let's say I was a rabbi from Nashville, Tennessee, and I said, underwater in Houston, move to the Jewish community of Nashville. Nobody would have thought twice. Nobody would have had a problem. Everybody has a problem when it comes to Israel because they know deep down that that's where this is all going.
That's right. Jeremy, I can't wait to hear what you've got to say about all this.
Yeah, it's an interesting divide that's happening in America. I mean, we'd like to trust in the right, but at the same time, if we're celebrating Purim, we have to look at, because every book that's in the Bible isn't just a story, it's a prophecy. It's put there in order to give us guidance all the way until the end of days. And what happens right around chapter 9 is it says, Rabim me'amei ha'aretz mityahadim, that many among the nations, they don't convert to Judaism, but they start to become more Jewish. They start to become more biblical, more Hebrew. They start reconnecting to the source.
Where do you get that from, though, exactly? It's there written in the book of Esther?
In the book of Esther.
That they become more Jewish.
They start
literally
behaving more.
They don't
like
convert to Judaism. They come.
Mitgairim is to convert to Judaism. Mityahadim literally means they start to behave, act, talk, dress. They start to live more biblical. They're in Persia. And now they're starting to be more Judean.
That's so wild.
And so what that is to me is sort of a sign for the time. Why are these right wingers in America turning against Israel? It's a separation from the land of Israel itself. There's only one promise that's given in the Torah, and only one prophecy that's meant to be an international testimony. It says, God promises the land of Israel to the people of Israel. And one day, I'm going to bring all of the people of Israel back to this one land that I've chosen for them. And if you say, there's no land, it's a politics, it's like once you remove yourself from that one truth, because truth is eternal, truth is forever. That's it. And so there was one truth given to us in the Bible, that God gave this land eternally to the people of Israel. And once you remove yourself from that truth, then you can sort of turn against Israel, blame Israel for what's going on, and not see things very clearly. But the anchor is the land of Israel. And those that are connected to the land of Israel, those are the ones that will start to be mityahadim, to start to become more biblical, to start live a little bit more aligned with what it is. It's not Judeo-Christian values, but it's Judean Christian values. So all these Christians like Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens, that's what they need. They need a little bit more Judea in.
What about Samaria, though? I mean, is that...
Well, that's kind of like that's the flip side of the other.
Like almost as good, or just like.
Well, I don't want to be too negative about, but I do think that the Jewish community at large should be understanding the power of that right, but they also should understand that as Jews become stronger in their land and this redemptive process that's happening in Israel, as Jewish people come back to the land, there's going to be a lot more like toward the end of the Purim story where the nations begin to wake up as well. And they're like, what are we fighting against? And that is growing at the same time. A lot of the people in Persia
started aligning themselves with the Jews because just because they didn't want to get killed, because they realized that the tables are turned, which is the whole story.
I think more than that, there was a really heart to be more understand Jewish things, right? And so I think that movement is also growing worldwide as Israel is becoming stronger. And that's the positive side of the coin. And that's really maybe the David and Goliath choices that people are making right now, whether their descendants will be a part of a Davidic kind of understanding, or whether they will be at a war against that, would literally the Orpah and Ruth thing, which I thought was powerful.
Well, it's definitely all eyes are on this little land.
Yes, no doubt.
I mean, there's a much bigger war happening in the Ukraine and Russia. There's wars. I mean, what's happens here in the land, even if it's just one child that happens to walk across the fence, the whole world is watching and paying attention because the plan is going to unfold here. This is the theater of redemption. This is the center stage. This is the main event, and it's happening right here. So whether people like it or not, they're always kind of paying attention. What is happening in that land? And what's happening there with those Jews and those chosen people and that chosen land and that promise? And so it's happening before our eyes.
I want to make sure that people watching and listening understand what just happened here. And that is that a couple of Orthodox Jewish rabbis just encourage all of the non-Jews around the world that if you're feeling like you want to align yourself more with the Jewish people or with Israel or living more biblically, or you feel connected to the Jewish feasts, the biblical festivals, like that's okay. That's something that's happened before. It'll happen again. And we're saying this is also a choice and a decision that you need to make. At the same time, I would say a couple of Christian Zionists sitting here in Israel are also encouraging the Jewish people. Josh, you're saying if you're living in Nashville, Tennessee, you might want to rethink what location in the world you're living right now, because even though Israel looks like one of the most dangerous places in the world, guess what? It's a way safer than America, and it's about to be way safer than America. So I think
even the drive through Hawara statistically is safer than in neighborhoods in Chicago.
That's right.
100%. Yeah.
I just made that up, but it could be.
Oh, it definitely is.
No, there's no doubt about it.
No, it probably
is. No, hundreds, murdered in Chicago every year for sure. So I just think that's amazing, and I think that I don't want to let that point pass by. That's
actually how I really see you guys, because earlier on, as I said on our first episode, I had skepticism and some cynicism, but on my journey, I've already you've graduated from friends to family, in a real way. I mean that in a real way, and so when I say family, I'm like, wow, that's not a word you use lightly. Family is everything. Family is like such an unbelievable bond. And then I look at the prophets of Israel, like Zechariah, and he says, "V'nilvu goyim rabim al Hashem b'yomahu." And the word I understand, goyim, is like from the sacred sort of lofty goyim, that the righteous of the nations will v'nilvu, attach themselves to the house of Israel on that day, v'hayu li la'am, and they will be for me like a nation. Wow. That there is something new. Like it's not just, you don't just theologically get born into a thing. No, when you're actually with your very essence, putting your lives on the line, when you're casting your lot with Israel, when you're tying in your fate with the Jewish people, you're connecting with us in the most fundamental spiritual way. And that's what I think I see happening right now.
I just love the fact how when you're in Israel, you're sitting in Israel and you're meeting the people of Israel, specifically you two. The Bible is not just, we're not just talking about the whole Bible just became like a part of our discussion today as a living, breathing thing that's happening in front of us. It's not a thousands of years old story.
That's why we don't call it the Bible. The Bible, we call it in English, but what does the Bible mean? Jeremy taught me this. It means the book.
Right.
What is the Torah? A Torah is a living teaching, meaning it's a living, dynamic teaching that is a part of us, that is very alive within us. That's a fundamentally different perception,
I just had a rabbi or a local friend here who came and talks to our volunteers, and it was just the same thing. Again, Israel is a living, breathing, The Bible story is continuing. It's not ended. It's a part of the process of here. It's almost like in replay, or if it's whatever, however we're saying it. The Torah portion about that we just read, and Jeremy, you probably got something more on this, but he literally looked at us as a local guy that came to share, and he said he looked at us, he looked at our volunteer group that was here, said we're talking about counting, right? We're counting the people, right? And for the shekel and all these things that the Torah portion goes into, and then he said, you guys are part of that counting. I was like, what are you talking about? We're part of that counting. He says, you need to go back home and make sure all your neighbors are also counted. And I was like, knock me back. I'm like, you're telling me that we're actually a part of this. You're talking about being more Jewish. You're talking about understanding more. This is a Jewish redemption that's happening. The Jewish people are coming. You're the light that's going to all the world. We know that. You're in that, and that's what's happening. And yet we're being invited to throw off some of that stuff. That stuff that didn't make sense and things, and you need to align yourself with Israel, and our non-Jewish world is being invited to be. He said, "Go make sure your neighbors are counted in this story as well." I was like, it hit me so powerfully. I was like, "You got to be kidding me!" And that's what this show is about. Is really let's pull some more people into the story.
You know, it's interesting. We need to make sure a lot of Jews, but I've noticed this also. Whenever I go to a Christian event anywhere in the world, every Jew turns and like, these guys know how to put on an event. They know how to get all this stuff where there's no Jewish event where the microphone isn't like, the guy's like adjusting it. Nothing works out, you know? But then I look at your event and you really can amplify a voice. And you guys aren't only amplifying the voice and the light coming out of Israel, but you're adding to it. You're adding a dimension and a spark and a hue to the beautiful light that's coming out.
Well, I think it's not a coincidence that Israel is strategically located in a sea of tyranny, jihad, illiteracy, and evil. We have the Hezbollah and the Syrian Islamists above us. We have Gaza and the Hamas below us. We're just surrounded in the darkest region in the world. Why? Ultimately, to be a light to the nations. And the fact that there are these sparks among the nations that are mityahadim, that are becoming more biblical, that are aligning themselves with Israel, that light is only going to go and spread.
So there you guys go. It's time to take action. And you heard it from a couple of Christian Zionists. If you're Jewish, you need to come home. And I think that's the bottom line. If you're Christian, you also have the opportunity to take action. And if you come to Judea and Samaria, you can visit here and see this studio, but it'd be a lot better to go to Judea and visit the Arrow Goat Farm.
This is a very special place as well.
It really is.
That's right. Yeah. Almost as special as the Mount of Blessing, but it's pretty close. But yeah, I think it's just an encouragement. Everybody has the opportunity to be part of the story. That's the story of Purim, the story of Esther, right? They had the choice. The neighbors had the choice.
Don't just do Purim, live it, right? That's what this whole show is like.
It's funny. I think this whole show turned into an amazing Bible lesson. We kind of like just forgot about the news that's happening this week. But
Jeremy, is it okay for non-Jews to celebrate Purim?
Absolutely. You're invited. Of course you are.
Purim's also like the most like happy, fun.
So they need to recognize the miracle.
It's very confusing.
Yeah.
It's confusing.
Yeah,
Purim is probably the most confusing and almost dangerous holiday for a non-Jew. If you're going to meet the Jewish people, don't meet them on Purim.
Yeah, that's true.
Sages of Israel who are scholars and people of kindness and compassion. And they're like drinking vodka and like, I'll tell you when the night's still young. It's like, what is going on? But the fact is that like on
let's keep it on a simple level.
Statistically, Jews have the least alcoholism rate of all the nations of the world. And this is the day that we get drunk enough that we're supposed to not be able to know the difference between blessed is Mordechai and cursed is Haman. Because on the deepest level of truth, we know that they're both from God. They're both going to bring blessing in their own ways. The question is, as we started with, are you going to be Mordechai, where the light is funneled and channeled through you as a vessel and a vehicle that you are to bring that light into the world, or Haman, where God is bringing the light into the world through you, but reflecting it off of you? That's the question. And so I think that's probably a good way to wind it all down. That's what we're saying to all the nations.
The one last thing I want to say about Purim, I didn't get a chance, is I thought that was really fascinating, Jeremy, what you said about, I think most people would look at the story of Esther and they would call it like, Esther's like the miracle book, right? Like the miracle, God comes in and saves the day. But I thought it was interesting that it wasn't just a miracle from heaven and the miraculous the Jewish people were saved. It was a miracle and the Jewish people were empowered to stand up and fight for themselves. Because I think it gets a little bit forgotten in the end of the book. It talks about how basically there was a war after Esther went into the king, talked to him, the king and Esther and the king saved the day. But then the decrees were basically, all right, Jews, now you are empowered to stand up and fight for yourselves. And then there was like a war on their enemies. And by the way, that's also when the neighbors and the nations went and decided to align themselves with the Jewish people. So I just think it's interesting the times that we're in right now, that the Jewish people need to be empowered to stand up and fight for themselves. And obviously they're doing that, but too many, I was just looking at people sending out news articles right now. A lot of this is Israel's going to the United States looking for permission, to be sovereign on the Temple Mount, to be sovereign in Judea and Samaria, to finish Hamas, to go into Lebanon and Syria and do what they need to do. That's not the story. The Jewish people
sovereignty. If you
and
need
the nation of Israel
sovereignty.
needs to stand up and fight for themselves and rely on God. And I think that's just another facet to this whole time period that we're in, and the story of Purim, which starts tonight. So I think it's time. Obviously, the nations have the choice. Are we going to stand with Israel? Are we going to back Israel? Are we going to be a part of the positive story? But at the end of the day, the nation of Israel has to be strong and sovereign and stand up and fight for themselves.
What was the name of your song that I love so much and cry every time I watch it?
I think we're going to rename it Lion in the Sand.
Lion in the Sand.
It's called I Believe.
I Believe.
It's called I Believe. Everybody needs to go to YouTube and type in.
What's funny is
I Believe.
we did this together. What's funny is the Israel guys, many years ago, the channel was started as Zion's Sake, and that's where this song was posted like 15 years ago. To this day, that video is still in like the top 15 most popular videos on the Israel guys, and we keep waiting for it to get pushed further and further down the list.
I'm keeping it up there
because it's so old.
You keep helping it out. Really, I don't know
you can
why.
actually just look on most popular videos on this channel, and you'll find.
I'll tell you why, because I remember when I watched it, and ever since then, it felt like I was seeing a glimpse into the days of redemption. It was just so beautiful. I believe in the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Yes, we have different perceptions and different understandings, and there are theological differences between us. That's true. But on the foundational core, it's not even an intellectual thing. There's a spiritual bond that's forming that has to be, it's a glimpse into the times of redemption. And when I read the comments on some of these videos we're putting out, people are seeing it between us. Yeah. People comment. Usually you see a video on YouTube and you comment about the content of what was discussed. But I see so many comments about the very essence of what we're doing here that it's really a glimpse into the times of redemption.
It sounds a little bit like Purim and after the war and nations starting to get connected more to what's happening. Yeah. I think we're living it right now.
I just want to point out that two things. One, thank you to you guys. And you guys can thank the rabbis in the comments for doing this show on a fast day. No, it's not easy. Right. And also, too, I want to make sure everybody knows that before the show started, Ari said that he didn't really have much to bring today and that we couldn't rely on him. So I don't know. Maybe we should take that approach more often because you seem like you're on fire today. But yeah, no, thank you guys so much for watching, listening. Make sure you subscribe. thelandofisrael.com to connect with Jeremy and Ari. If you want to visit the Arrow Goat Farm, join the Land of Israel Fellowship, you need to get connected to these guys. If you enjoy Bible studies like we just had, the Land of Israel Fellowship meets every week, and people can become a member of that, and definitely should do that. We'll put a link in the description below. And don't forget to sign up for the Israel Summit before the sale ends this Sunday, March 16th at midnight. Also put the link down below. You want to get your tickets for that this June 9th through 11th in Dallas, Texas. Love to see you guys there. As always, guys, stop listening to the lies and propaganda and connect to the truth and reality of what's happening here in the Land of Israel. Make sure you celebrate Purim this week. We'll be back next week here at the Land of Israel Network and the Israel Guys.